Welcome to the Coop Tank. I'm your host, Steve Cooper, coming to you from SuiteRecording in beautiful Mount Laurel, New Jersey. And I'm here with Joe Gangemi. And Joe, Thanksgiving's coming up, and I got to tell you, I like the dark meat. I think white turkey meat is too dry. And years ago, I went to a party, and they had that stuffing with like walnuts and raisins, and I wanted to spit it out because I like the plain stovetop. I don't care, or just something. I want basic. I don't want any broccoli in my stuffing. What's your gig? Do you like the dark meat? Do you like the white meat? Or are you a fancy guy, stuffing guy, or are you a regular stuffing guy?
Coop, I am a dark meat guy all the way. Like you said, the white stuff is a little too dry, generally speaking. It's just bland. As far as stuffing goes, I'm lucky. So I eat Thanksgiving with my parents, and my mom makes the stovetop, and my dad makes stuff that's more homemade. They're both delicious in their own right. I tend to prefer the homemade stuff, and yeah, there's no walnuts in it, so that's my gig there.
Well, why don't you tell us a little more about Sweet Recording and why it's such a special place?
Yeah, man. At SuiteRecording, we help brands and businesses to leverage the power of podcasts and video content. Podcasting is a great tool for generating high impact content like video clips, blog posts, newsletters, and more. And it's also great for business development too, when you think about the networking possibilities with clients, prospects, strategic partners, and the like. So, there's a lot to it that we can do for you. So if you're interested in learning more, you can contact us anytime at hello@suiterecording.com or visit us on the web at suiterecording.com. That's SUITE. Take it away, Coop.
All right, we have a great show today. We have three guys I'm friends with. I actually know. Like sometimes I get people I don't know. Sometimes I get people I just networked once or twice. And my first guest, he's the OG of the Coop Tank. He was in the first Coop Tank episode ever when it was one-on-one interviews, and he was in the first roundtable from KD Law. It's Kevin Diduch. How you doing, Kevin?
Well, thank you very much, Coop, for having me. How are you?
I'm doing great. And my next guest, you've heard me mention the Soundplex Studios where I do comedy. The next one is on Tuesday, November 26th with the very funny Jay Black. He's the owner of the Soundplex. It's George Koch. How you doing, George?
I'm doing great, Steve. Thanks a lot for having me today, and welcome Kevin and Carmine as well.
And finally, a gentleman who actually I saw playing guitar at Kevin Diduch's benefit where I got in a dunk tank. It's from Reliant Land Services. It's Carmine De Santo. How you doing, Carmine?
Hi, Steve. Doing well. Nice to be here today. Thank you.
All right. So, Kevin, tell us a little about KD Law and what you do for KD Law.
Sure. So KD Law is a full service real estate law firm located in downtown Haddonfield, New Jersey. We do everything from real estate transactions, landlord tenant, real estate litigation, land use and zoning, and we try to have a good time while we're doing it.
How about, I've actually people, if you go online, Kevin's commercial, I'm in it. I was the guy talking to him at the desk. He called me out on that. And George, tell us a little about what you do for the Soundplex and what the Soundplex is.
I'm an owner of the Soundplex, which is located in Pennsauken, New Jersey. It's basically a complex for creatives, whether you're an artist, a musician, or marketer, business person. It's a vehicle to promote your business in a cool themed space that's kind of unique. But we have all the capabilities to do podcasting, recording, etc. But I welcome you all to come by. It's worth your wait just to stop in and take a tour.
And Carmine, tell us a little more about Reliant Land Services and what you do there.
Steve, Reliant Land Services is a full-service title company. We do title and settlements. We're licensed in New Jersey and Pennsylvania. We do both commercial and residential title work. And what we basically do is we make sure that the buyer has a very smooth settlement when they go to buy a home or a business, and we insure the title, and we ensure that the title is clean and they're not going to have any issues that pop up in the future.
All right. Well, this panel's great because, I always like people have stories and everyone has like such a good backstory in this panel. And that's why I'm glad I have them together. Carmine, tell us your backstory and how you ended up at Reliant.
Well, my original, my job that got me into financial services was I was a wholesale lending rep. And I started doing that in 1990. And my job was to go out and get business from mortgage brokers and bankers and put them through the bank that I was working for. And I worked for some pretty big banks like Citibank, HSBC. And, I was always in the big corporate world. And then 2008 happened. And if any of you know what happened in 2008, it was pretty ugly. All of us bankers and, wholesale reps, we were all out of a job all of a sudden because everything crashed. So I had to find a new way to make a living. And the most obvious choice was to go into title because it allowed me to do business with some of the same people that I did in the mortgage business, the ones that were still around, I should say. Um, so I worked for a title company for 10 years. I didn't know a whole lot about title until I went to work for that first company. And I did really well there for 10 years. And then in 2018, I was laid off. So I was out of a job again. And I was very lucky to be introduced to Reliant. We're a mom and pop shop. There's four of us in the company, and our owner Frank has been in the title business for many, many years. He knows the ins and outs of doing residential and commercial, and it's the best thing that ever happened to me. I went from big corporate world to mom and pop, which was quite an adjustment for me, but I love it.
All right, Kevin, I know. Give us a little about your backstory because it's a crazy one.
Yeah, so as of next month, I'll be an attorney in the state of New Jersey for 10 years total. Started off in mortgage foreclosures and then moved my way over to a redevelopment and land use law firm that specialized in some litigation and municipal government work. And then in 2021, I decided to become my own boss and start my own firm. I just had to ask my wife. She said, okay. So we started on this journey, and we've been having fun ever since, 3.5 years later.
George, tell us about your path to the Soundplex.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I was always in healthcare sales out of school and working pretty diligently about kind of getting some penetration. Hooked up with a guy out in California who had an interesting product, and I hooked up with him to help him distribute it. And we needed space, so I bought an old warehouse in Pennsauken through a friend of mine whose father owned it. He was a furniture company, Mental McDonald Furniture, and all it was a cold storage warehouse, no real electricity, just all boarded up windows. We bought it for a song and a dance, threw a little bit of money at it, but we were distributing medical supplies, importing them from China, lack of a better word, but we're doing really well. But then they decided to downsize. I didn't need the space much more anymore, so I started to rent it out to tenants, and each tenant brought something interesting, artists, musicians, etc. And then I started just kind of come up with the fact that, I really like this space. So I start renovating a little bit here and there. It was large, it's 12,000 square feet. But Victor Records, which was a synonymous with recorded sound out of Camden, a young musician, bought the brand to all that because it expired. So he bought all the copywriting brand, and he said, George, I love your building. I want to operate there. So I said, I got a tenant. I'm going to have to kick him out, but you're going to have to make me an offer I can't refuse. So he made me part owner of the company, and so on. But he was a young kid. I was trying to advise him that he needed about $1 million to launch a recording studio, record presser, manufacturer of record players. And, he thought basically he could shoestring it. Unfortunately, COVID came. He had to downsize, but the place was in disrepair. So I threw a lot of money at it, almost my entire retirement savings. But now it's a pretty cool vehicle for creatives. We're expanding into small businesses. We're selling memberships. We're also going to build a streaming infrastructure. So we really want to be a space where everyone can come and build content, because as humans, all we do is absorb content. So we're going to create content here and push the envelope of what that is. So it's been fun, an arduous process to say the least, dealing with the township, but we are open now. We've had several events, and the place is getting a lot of rave reviews. We had an article in a Jersey Man, another one in Collingswood Living. So we're excited about our future and welcome you all there. And keep in touch with us as we have events. And Steve will host a comedy show at least once a month, and it's gone very well. So we're having another one Tuesday, the 26th. So hopefully you both can make it.
All right. So, I always laugh. Everyone always says how they love their job. And no one ever looks, no one ever says anything. There's some people, I want to start this off. What don't you like about your job? Kevin, we'll start with you. What don't you like about your job?
Other than people, I think generally giving people news they don't want to hear is always a tough aspect of my job. Everybody's got this fantasy that they're right or that their cause is worth litigating. So a real tough part of my job is sort of breaking the news to them that they maybe don't have a case, or maybe they should, exercise their resources somewhere else or reshift their focus. And honestly, I think when I had my stroke in 2021, that perspective that comes from something like that has sort of helped me get through it and realize, when things are really important and when they're not. But people don't want to hear that bad advice sometimes. They just don't want to hear the bad news. Good advice, bad news.
How about you, George? What don't you like? I mean, I know you really dig the Soundplex, but what don't you like about the Soundplex or your job as being an owner?
Well, that's an interesting question. I think, the easy answer is all the minutia, because as a business owner, you got to wear many hats, and some of those hats I don't like. One is on the financial side, the accounting side, the bookkeeping side, which I do it all more or less. And I always procrastinate. I put it off, and then I'm doing my whole books in December before the next year. So that's a real pain in the ass. But another interesting one was, and this is just recently, I deal with a lot of musicians and artists, and it's hard to criticize someone who's passionate about a life work when, in essence, art's very subjective. So you have to be somewhat honest with folks to give them the input that they need to kind of grow their brand and grow what they do to make it more appealing. So it's being constructive, critical to people that may be a little sensitive to that. So that's been an interesting challenge for me, and it's something that it's hard because I've never been that way. It's always been sales. Hey, this is what's great, and if you don't like it, that's fine. You walk away. But now you have to be a little bit more personable with some folks that are in the creative space. So that's been interesting, and I'm getting better at it. But it's something that wasn't easy to deal with at first.
Yeah, George always tells me I'm not funny. He goes, Coop, you're not that funny. So I go, whatever.
But thank God
man.
my wife thinks you're funny, Steve. So you're good.
Exactly. I mean, his wife loves my act. Carmine, what don't you like about your job?
That for me, that's a tough question. If you would ask me this question, 7 years ago before I came with Reliant, I could have basically taken up the rest of the program with things that I didn't like, because I worked for a company that wasn't supportive, that didn't really truly get what competition is and what it's like in the title business. Because the thing about title is that we all charge the same amount. There's no difference between us and another title company. We're state regulated. We all charge the same premiums. What separates us is the service and the relationships. So, back then I didn't have a lot of tools to work with to build those relationships. But now I do. I mean, I honestly, I love what I do. I love the guy I work for, and I have all the tools that I need to compete out there. So there's not really anything that I can really think of that I don't like about the job. But
Okay, well
that's a
then
great
you touched
question.
on the fact that you love all the tools. Tell me something else tell me something you love about your job. I mean, for me, I love being on stage. Okay, I hate the bullshit that goes with it. And I hate the nervousness, and you think if I go up, I suck. And even it's a part that goes through any creative type. But so you have the tools, but what else? What else do you really like about what you do?
Well, I like being out there and meeting people. I like building the relationships. Um, I love it when a client gives me a first opportunity and we knock it out of the park. It's which usually does happen. We're extremely good when it comes to service and accommodating customers. Um, I mean, that's what I really like. I really like, when people say, Reliant Land Services is a great company, you should use them. I know they truly mean it because there's so many title companies out there that they could use. Um, and we're not an in-house title company, meaning most of the real estate brokers out there do have an inside, an in-house company. which we are not, which makes it a little bit more competitive. So, yeah, I like the competition. I like the challenge. And when things go great, I really, that's the payoff.
Okay, okay. George, what do you like? What do you really like about being owner of the Soundplex? I mean, I've been there. You look like you're always having fun. You know, you're out there, you're mingling with people. But when you break it down, what is it that you really like about when you sit there and you go, man, you know what? I got it pretty good. This is pretty cool.
I really don't even think of it as a job anymore. I really enjoy the people side of it. And they're all interesting people from A to Z. You meet all types in the creative space. So I probably met easily 200 artists and musicians, maybe another 100 musicians just this past year. So it's been interesting having dialogue with those folks because in my prior world, I was in the healthcare space and it was all about, pumping old people with medications. And it is what it is, but it was kind of a very pharma driven business. But now it's a universal because now every person is kind of a prospect or a consumer because everyone has a creative aspect to what they do. Even small businesses, we want to be that vehicle. So just getting out there, networking with a local population versus a national one, which I was doing, is fun because I'm meeting a lot of interesting people, and those alliances are very helpful to kind of spearhead our exposure, build our brand, and also make more people aware of what unique stuff we do here, which has been a lot of fun. And just having dialogues with guys like Steve. I mean, I've just met him over the last year and a half or so, and it's been fun to kind of engage with these comedians and kind of bring laughter to these folks. So it's about people pleasing, and I love people pleasing. It's all about making people happy, and when people are content when they leave this building, that's all I need, and it provides a lot of contentment for me.
Okay. How about you, Kevin? What do you love about jokes? I know you love your job, and
Yeah,
you got, and I know you're good at it. I mean, you took care of Joanne. I mean, I know, and I could tell you when I had lunch with you, you take pride, man, in winning a case. I mean, you fucking love that shit. What is it you love about your job?
as much as I don't like telling someone that they don't have a case, I love telling someone who either doesn't have the courage to stand up for themselves or somebody who doesn't think they even have a shot, that they've got as much of a shot as they have, and taking that case to court and proving the point. There is no thrill greater than that.
See that? That's a good thrill. That's like a comic having a great set or a musician. Carmine, you're a musician, probably just doing a riff where the crowd goes crazy. It's probably the same thing. We're all on stage. I mean, we're on stage every day, and people don't understand that. I mean, you can go to the supermarket, you're on stage. You know, when you're trying to slide, broccoli without paying for it, you're on stage. But I wouldn't do that. But if I do, Kevin will, represent me against Aldi. So I always, sometimes I go through social media and which we'll talk about later, and people are always blowing their own horn. They're telling you how great they are. Okay, they always tell you this, and it's unbelievable. But in fact, a lot of the more people who have great qualities and characteristics about them, they don't say it. I guess because you sound like a dick if you just come out and go, "Hey, I'm awesome," So George, I'm gonna let you, you can toot your own horn, as my mom would say, pat yourself on the back. What's a characteristic, George, that you really like about yourself, and you're glad that you have that characteristic?
Um, Honestly, I just think I'm a very likable person. When I network, I meet people. I'm very aggressive from that approach, saying hello to folks. And then once I get started, I'm very engaging, and I think people are interested in what I have to say. So I don't like to bore anyone. I bore easily myself, so I try to be as engaging as possible, short on words, but using powerful dialogue to get an impact. And I think I'm very effective at that. So, and I'm more effective in person. So when I'm out there, networking at a networking event, or I'm working the crowd at a local event, that's where I thrive, and that's where I'm at my best.
How about you, Kevin?
Being confident without being arrogant. And boy, did I suck at that for the longest time. But having
No,
confidence.
why did you suck at it? Well, give me
Oh,
an
because
example.
I thought, I mean, when I first got my license to practice law, I thought I was God's gift to the court system. I mean, I really thought, and then I was lucky enough. I had people who cared enough about me in my life to pull me aside and say, man, you really think you're cool. You're really just an asshole. And if it wasn't for that, Jesus God, I mean, I don't know where the hell I would be, but I certainly wouldn't be here. You guys wouldn't want to talk to me, that's for sure.
All right. How about you, Carmine?
Well, I have a background in entertainment. I mean, I did that when I got out of high school, and I traveled, around the country. And, the only reason why I got out of it is because I had to settle down and get a real job when I got married. So, um, but I love the fact that I have that comfort level with people because I'm used to being on stage. And I've played for big crowds, and I can walk into a room that's a crowded room and instantly talk to people because of I think it's really because of my entertainment background, because I know how to break the ice. I know how to say things that make people feel good about themselves. And it's all about, relationship building. And I think I'm pretty good at that. I really love doing that.
Okay, we're gonna flip the coin here. Something I have to improve on is I'm sort of a grudge holder. I'm a true Scorpio. My sign. I'm like, if you screw me over, it's gonna take a lot for me to get you in good graces, and I hold a grudge, and I learned it from my father. I mean, he held a grudge against his brother. It's just crazy. So that's something I got to learn, and I got to improve on. And I haven't, and I probably won't ever, but I will. I hopefully. Carmine, what's something that you can improve on?
Something I can improve on?
Yeah.
Um, Jeez, you're asking some pretty tough questions today, Steve. I didn't study for this.
No, you got to sit there. If you wake up, everyone has to know something they have to improve on. I am also a procrastinator, but what's something you think that you need to improve on?
Um, well, we all can push ourselves a little harder. And if I had to improve on anything, I would say maybe I could push myself a little bit harder, you know. And I've been successful in my business, but who knows, where how much more successful I could be if I pushed myself harder. So, I mean, I think I work at a level that's comfortable for me. I go to, networking events. I don't go to networking events 5 days a week, night and day, but I could if I wanted to. So, I could probably, hustle more if I really wanted to, and I know I could. I have the resources out there to do that. So, that would be the only thing I can really think of.
Okay. How about you, Kevin? I mean, you're not an asshole anymore, so we already touched
Right,
that.
yeah.
So you can't improve on that. You improved on that, so you actually did the path. But what is something that you can improve on in your life right now?
Well, my wife's got the whole list, so I'm going to have to patch her in if this isn't a good enough answer. But that being said, cutting bait, whether it comes to bad relationships or just relationships that are not working out, I almost am too enthusiastic or too ingratiated in the relationship to sort of see through when it's not going so well. I must have too much faith in it. You know what I mean? So learning to maybe cut ties a little sooner than I do.
Now, when you sit there and go through about cutting ties, do you sort of feel bad? Like, because that makes sometimes,
Always.
even though someone's a prick and you feel bad to become, I was wondering, because I go through that too. So you go through that.
Yeah, well, because I mean, listen, man, like I said earlier, I recognize where my flaws are. Sometimes people have to point them out to me. But, in looking at a relationship, if somebody else doesn't want to change on that other side of the ball, you're not going to be able to change them for them. I'm motivated to improve on myself. I go through coaching. I go through, just a daily self-assessment. Some people don't do that. They're so totally unaware of who and what it is they are that they don't have the wherewithal to notice, what, maybe I need to improve on this. So I'm always sort of optimistic and think, well, maybe they will, maybe it'll change, but it never changes. It never changes.
Okay. George, what's something you have to improve on?
Organization, man. I got piles of stuff everywhere. My wife will tell me, "How do you do it?" Well, I don't think about it that much because I'm thinking about other stuff. I like the high level visionary thought processes, so I forget where I put something. So I'm always looking for something in the house, at the office. Like I said, I got 3 or 4 different filing systems. And I just can't take the bull by the horn when it comes to organization because I have no interest in it. So I get people to help me with that, and then all of a sudden it only lasts so long, and then before you know it, it's in the same boat again. So I deal with it, but it's a time consumer and a pain in the ass, but it's not going to change. I mean, I'm at a point now of no return. So unless someone follows me around and says, "Where can I put this?" Then it's just going to stay the same, and I deal with it, and I function as best I can in that space. So it's just one of those Achilles heels that you just can't get rid of, and but it's always something in the back of my mind. So, and I'm glad you asked that question because now I got it off my chest.
Well, you hear, it's funny about organization because I'm organized somewhat, but Joanne is so organized, and like my socks are right in order, and then she'll sit there. I mean, she does the laundry because she thinks I'll screw it up, even though I was single for years. But it's so funny because I'll go through my socks and I'll go, "What happened to the one?" I'll remember the one with a hole in the heel, and I'll still wear it. And she's like, "I threw it away." That's how organized she is. She'll go through and find the sock with a hole, and then throw that pair away. But I'm like, that sock wasn't ready to go. The hole was only this big, and she's like, "Still, your foot's gonna get cold." So I think that's a male trait. A lot of us either we're overly organized or we're messy.
Now,
That's
Steve,
that's
did
funny you
you
mentioned that, Steve. Real quick, my wife goes to my closet. She's like, "You don't wear these clothes," so she goes to my closet and puts a pile, and then I go through that pile. And I say, "Wait, I'm not getting rid of that shirt. I'm not getting rid of that shirt. I'm not getting rid of that." And all of a sudden, the pile's half the size, and the rest, it's back in the closet again. It's
What were you gonna say,
hilarious.
Kevin?
Oh, did you do that on purpose? Did you mess up the laundry on purpose so that she would just always
No, I
do it?
never messed the laundry up. She just thought I can't do it. Just like she won't let me wash the dishes. Even though, man, back in high school, I run one of the Hobarts, and you people know if you worked at a restaurant, the good old Hobart, the big washing machine, dishwasher. I'm like, I knew what I was doing, but hey, I'm not going to complain. So, a few years ago, when I moved back here, I went through a bad health scare. Okay, I had a regular heartbeat that was not fixed, and I was in the hospital for 8 days. And I overcame that challenge. Okay, I could have sat there and been like, "Oh God, woe is me, woe is me," but I wasn't. I changed. I had to take care of it. And it's a challenge I overcome that I'm very proud of. And I talk to people a lot of times when they have heart issues, I'll reach out to them. So in your life, and it could be personal, it could be professional. And we'll start with you, George. What's a obstacle or a challenge that you've overcome that you're very proud of?
There's been several. I mean, my whole life's been a roller coaster, but I think one of the most important ones was I was working for a company for 13 years. Great company, loved it, was very successful, and company had 15 or so reps. We were all very, the same. We had a blast twice a year when we had these sales meetings, but I saw an opportunity to go down another path. So I invented a product that was more home based for medication storage because assisted living was just starting. And I was doing this on the side. It wasn't competitive. Now, mind you, I just bought a house. My wife's pregnant, and the owner of that business found out about it. They called me up and said, "George, you got to fly to Ohio." So I fly to Ohio, and I knew it was going to happen. They suspended me. So then I contacted my attorney, and lo and behold, he says, "You gotta quit, because you can't. You're not going to get the job back. So just quit." So I quit, and then a week later, that company that I had worked for got acquired by a bigger company. So then what happened was the bigger company bought the small company. They said my non-compete was assignable, but I immediately hooked up with this company out in California, and I was working it, and I got sued. And I had no real big time money in the bank, but we had a new house. My wife was pregnant. I'm like, "Oh shit, I'm starting a new business with no money, getting sued. And now I'm paying an attorney 25, 30K to fight this lawsuit." But it took 6 months, maybe 9 months, but I went all the way to the courts in Ohio, and I actually won the case. And it was probably one of the worst times of my life from a professional standpoint, because even the owner, I saw him at trade shows. I was just trying to make ends meet, and he goes, "Well, I'm not done with you." So it was almost like the fact that he just had big money. They didn't want me competing. They didn't want me out there, so they would do anything they could to keep me down. And I said, "I'm not going to do it." So I fought it, and I actually wanted that non-compete was not assignable to the other company, and it turned out to be okay. So it was a big challenge. So as you go through those things, you build a hard exterior, and then you get to a point where it's like, okay, nothing gets in my way, and that's just part of business. And I teach that to my son all the time. You got to deal with those downward spirals, man, because the more you deal with them, the better you become, and they're less of a burden on you personally. So that was a big challenge, and I got through it, and happy about it, and it kind of led to where I am today.
Okay. How about you, Kevin? What's a challenge you've overcome in your life?
So the first one that comes to mind, January 18th, 2021, I had my stroke. And I'll tell you, Steve, it wasn't so much overcoming the stroke that was the challenge. It was overcoming the habits that caused the stroke that became the challenge. So sleepless nights, overworking, malnutrition, not drinking enough, overstimulation, just being a workaholic and not having my priorities straight. So being able to have a moment where you are in a situation where things are not going well, you sort of look around and say, okay, I've got a choice. Am I going to be able to overcome this or not? Thankfully, I was able to do that with the assistance of some really great friends and my wife and my family. And I was able to beat a lot of those bad habits over time that I thought were points of pride in my life. Oh, I'm working till 9 o'clock in the morning, or 9 o'clock at night. I'm working in 16-hour shifts, and I'm writing big checks to my wife, but I'm not changing a diaper or reading a bedtime story or eating dinner with my kids. Like, those are the types of things that matter in life in the long run. So yeah, that's a big challenge I was able to overcome, beating those really negative habits.
Okay. How about you, Carmine? What's a challenge you've overcome that you're proud of in your life?
Well, I'm very proud that the company that I was with for 10 years, the title company, that eventually laid me off because they decided to change their work model and how they went about sales. Laid me off in 2018, and the timing couldn't have been worse because my wife was going through chemotherapy at the time. She was diagnosed in 2017 with ovarian cancer, and then went through a surgery. And right around when this all happened, she was going through chemo, and then I lost my job. So I'm thinking, there's got to be a reason behind all this, and that's when I said I was fortunate enough to meet Frank at Reliant, because I basically, I'm no, I hate to say it, I'm no spring chicken. I'm very seasoned. I've been around a long time, and it was even more of a challenge for me because, I had a couple things working against me. One being my age. So I overcame that, I think pretty successfully. Here I am, going on 7 years later, and I made a really decent career out of title, and especially with this new company. I just think that I could have really gone the other direction, but somehow or another I hung in there, and my wife was very supportive, even though she wasn't feeling well. She was very, very supportive. So.
Right. I always hate that term spring chicken because who would, like, when you think about it, like you said, Carmen, like seasoned, I can understand you want to eat a seasoning, but a spring chicken, who would want to eat a spring chicken? Like, it's small, like you want like a full grown chicken. Like, if you're gonna eat a spring chicken, just get like a Cornish game hen. That's sort of like, I never understood that term. So anyway, we're gonna get into some other terms. So I used to ask this question on the show every week about someone who's played an important role in your life? And I would say about, a comic I met at one time, or my mom, or my dad. But I want to know someone who in the last 2 or 3 years has played an important role in your life, and you can't say your spouse, in your business, let's say in your business life. Maybe it's someone who's mentored you or whatever. But Kevin, who's someone in the last 2 or 3 years that's played an important role in your life, and you're glad that they're in your life?
Yeah, I've got a pretty good friend. His name is Tim Jennings. He owns a company called Telecore Technologies. Tim has really been sort of a North Star for me when it comes to how to treat people, how to carry yourself, how to give, and how to be humble about it while doing that. So honestly, that would be who I would point to. He's given me sage advice, been a self-made business owner for a number of years. It hasn't been all gravy. So when things come up, I'm able to call him and counsel, and he's just been an incredible human being, and I'm very thankful.
The only problem with Tim is when you do that walking and talking, he doesn't tell you before you do it. You have to walk like 2.5 miles, and then you're exhausted. And I was like, screw this. I'm like, I thought I was just going to walk for 7 minutes. And he's like, oh, and we'll walk around the whole goddamn neighborhood of Woodbury. And I'm like, dude, like, I don't even have to go to the gym now. My Fitbit, my steps are covered. So, Carmine, who's someone in the last 2 or 3 years that's played an important role? And it can be personal or professional, or both.
I mean, I would have to say the owner of Reliant, Frank Samraggio. He really came into my life at a good time, and he's played a very important role in my life. He's given me a whole different perspective on myself. He's given me the authority and the tools to bring myself to the next level in the title business. And he's very supportive. I can go to him anytime and discuss anything with him. So he's a very important person in my life.
How about you, George?
Well, and you might not think I can say my son, but I'm going to say my son because he graduated from college, gets a job, then gets a corporate job at JP Morgan, and he had a pretty good job and making good money. He quits because he says, I don't want to work for corporate America. Sounds like someone I know, and goes to Bangkok for 3 months. And I was like, wow, that kid's got some balls. Okay. And he kind of just all of a sudden reminded me of a younger me, So when he got back from Bangkok, we had these deep discussions about business, and it's almost rekindled a lot of my entrepreneurial spirit because I'm seeing him doing it and what he's been dealing with, and it's been a kind of an interesting dialogue over the last 9 months since he's been back that really kind of spurs a lot of thoughts for myself and what I do here at the Soundplex, but I'm also guiding him because I've had that experience and so on. So he's really rekindled a lot of this, the small business and what you have to do just out of the box, which applies today, because I'm kind of launching a new venture as well. So he's been key, and those dialogues that I have almost on a daily basis have been very helpful and constructive in regards to kind of refreshing my memory on what it's like to really get into the weeds and the doldrums of starting a business. And he's going through that now. So he's been a very helpful through that process.
And he's a nice kid. I've made fun of him. I made fun of him on stage when I got back from Bangkok about going to how much were you paying for like $2 hookers? I was giving him a hard time because I knew he just got back from Bangkok. So we live in a world now where it's a lot of it's about referral. We refer people. If I see something like someone's looking for a real estate lawyer on Facebook, I'll put Kevin Diduch, like in WhatsApp group, or someone wanted to do an event or an art show, I'd say George, or for you title, And the problem also is when we refer people, sometimes you get burnt. I had a conversation with a guy at my last cocktails with Cooper, and he said he met a guy and he saw the guy's LinkedIn post, and this guy was sort of involved with the chamber, one of the chambers, so he thought it was great, and he hired the guy and he paid him the money and he didn't get shit done. And then he kept trying to get shit done, and the guy wouldn't even call him back. So we have to, it's always, when you refer someone, there's pressure that person excels, because they don't hear it, you hear it. So we'll start with you, Kevin. What what characteristics or what does it take for someone that you will refer them? Because I know if Kevin Diduch refers you and you fuck it up, Kevin Diduch's going to give you shit, and I just know that about you, Kevin. And that whole thing goes back to your stroke too, and other things I saw you. You don't pull punches. But what is it that someone needs for you to refer them?
In many cases, even just in the context of being an attorney, I have to have known the person for a minimum a year or be involved in some sort of case with them. Some of the people that I refer now are other attorneys that I've litigated against or had transactions with. So those are the types of relationships. And you know what, Steve, you're right. If I get some negative feedback, I will call the person just to say, hey, man, this is sort of what I heard. Is there an explanation for it? And if the person is man enough to take that criticism or take the phone call, at least to hear out what I've got to say, then that to me is a relationship worth keeping, because that means they might self-reflect and say, all right, I can change this or change that. So that's sort of, those are the criteria for me.
It's so funny you bring it up about the phone call, because I went through that. I was someone I referred and they dropped the ball, and I called them. They didn't call me back. And I sat there and then I finally sent an email. I said, listen, man, I said, I consider you somewhat of a friend. I expect you to respect my judgment on you, And finally I ran into an event and they're like, oh, we'll get out of the room. I said, no, dude. I said, it's cool. You just sort of followed up. You should have taken care of this shit. And now I'm fine with the guy. I mean, I'm not going to refer him, but I have no issue against him because he fessed up, but it took a long time. So
it happens, and there's two sides to the story too. You might refer somebody out, and then the next thing you know, the feedback you get is really through a kaleidoscope and not through a glass lens. So
exactly.
It's good to have those conversations.
Carmine, what does someone need for you to refer someone?
Well, the best example, for me to refer someone, they have to be honest, and I have to know that they're going to do what's best for that person. They're going to help them. They're not going to take advantage of them in any way. And a good example is I was in a networking group a few years back, and in these networking groups, you have one of everything. You have a plumber, you have a handyman, you have an attorney, you have a financial planner. Well, plumbers do very well in those groups, and everybody needs a plumber eventually. Okay. And I referred this plumber out who was in the group, and I heard that his work was good, but when they told me what he charged, I thought it was very high for what they did. And at one of our meetings, it was right before a holiday weekend. It was like right before, 4th of July weekend or whatever. He got up and he said, send me your referrals because I make a lot more money on holiday weekends. I can really hit them hard, and I could charge double what I normally charge, and I, they're just I was kind of taken back by that, to be honest with you, because he was really looking, in my opinion, he was looking to take advantage of people, So I never referred that guy out again. That was, that just was, the wrong thing to say. So what I'm really looking for, I would have no problem referring Kevin Diduch out because I know he's going to do what's best for the client. And if you can't help them, he's going to tell them up front, I can't help you. You need to go to someone else. So that's the kind of thing I'm looking for. I'm looking for, reputation and honesty.
Okay. How about you, George? What's it take for you to refer someone out?
Yeah, I think the reputation is key. I would have to have experience of that person satisfying others for me to refer them, or myself. So if they've done some business for me and I was very happy with the service, I would definitely refer them. No question, because that's a very interpersonal relationship or interpersonal professional relationship where they actually satisfied an issue for myself. But if I ask around, and I do that often, what do you think of this person? What do you think of that person? So if I get good feedback, I'm pretty comfortable referring that person based on others being very satisfied with them. I'm not a real big guy going on to social media or even Google reviews. I mean, a lot of that stuff's a bunch of bullshit. I have to have a relationship with someone. I'm actually very big on that, and if I can kind of connect the dots and make sure that person's been reliable to others, then I have no problem referring them. So, Steve, I would refer you as a comedian to others. So there you go.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you. Well, here I'm going to stay with you, George. Why should I refer you?
Because I will do whatever it takes to satisfy client. And I go the extra yard always. I'm out there busting around. I do a lot of setup for a lot of my events, food, whether it's entertainment, food, infrastructure. I'll go the extra yard to do it because that's the bottom line. If someone's not satisfied, even if it's just one person, I take it personal. And so that, kind of motivates me to do everything I can do. And I've always done that, even in my business. It was always going the extra yard. If I got to do a lot of legwork, if I got to go out of my way, spend a few extra bucks, even lose money, which I've done a lot early on because that's just the nature of the beast. I'm fine with that as long as I get a good response and someone leaves my building with a big smile on their face. That's the ultimate goal here.
Okay, Kevin, why should I refer you?
Because I'm going to give you the answer to the question, not the answer you want per se, but the answer that you need to hear. So I'm going to be honest with you, and that's where the buck stops with me.
How about you, Carmine? Why should I refer you? There's lots of title guys out there. Why should I refer you?
Yeah, there's a ton of us out there, and very much like George, I go above and beyond. I'm always available for my clients. I'm not just an order taker. I follow up on the title work. I make sure it's being delivered in a timely manner. I follow up on settlements. If you have a settlement with us, you might get a phone call from me, a couple of days later. How did everything go? Were you happy with the service? And, I tell my clients, my clients are, real estate agents, attorneys, people that put a lot of hours in. And basically, I tell them I work when you work. So I don't have a cutoff. If you're working at 10 o'clock at night and you need to talk to a title guy, you can call me and I'll pick up the phone. So that's always been my my motto. I work when you work.
Okay. So this next one is a two-parter. It's a two-parter. And if you think they're the same, it's okay. I personally don't think the same. And I'm talking about at this point in your life, not when you were younger. But I want to know to you, one, what is success? And two, what is happiness? And I don't think, some people do think they're the same thing. I don't think so. I think they can play off each other, but there's a lot of successful people who are miserable. So, Kevin, I'm going to ask you, what is success to you and what is happiness to you?
To me, they're the same thing. Freedom of choice.
Freedom of choice?
To put yourself in a position to make decisions on your own for yourself. Nothing makes me happier or is a better sign of success. The fact that I have the world is my oyster.
Okay, that's good enough. So I said they can be the same answer. George, how about you?
I kind of tend to agree with him. I mean, to be your own boss, control your life, every bit of it, 100%. It's you in control is success, and it provides happiness because that's where you really need to be at a point in, and it doesn't matter what age you are, but you got to be in 100% control of your life. Certain things you can't control, obviously, like whether the weather is bad for a specific day. Those things are beyond your control. But the things that you can control, if you can control those things in an orderly fashion, it brings success and it also brings happiness for me, and getting happiness from others too. I mean, I'm a people pleaser, so when those folks are happy, I'm happy, and that gives me a lot of content. It allows me to sleep at night and so on. But it's a very complicated world, and you try to simplify it as much as possible. And I think Kevin did a good job of simplifying that, and I'll I'll kind of stay on his course basically.
All right, how about you, Carmine? You're going to stay in the course too, because if you do, this will be the first time that all three people said success and happiness is the same. I've never even heard it. I've never heard two say it, but it's okay. So, Carmine, success and happiness.
I pretty much have to agree with these gentlemen. Success and happiness are pretty much the same. I don't think that there's a dollar sign that can be associated with either of them. I think that when you're doing what you love to do, and like George said, you can, be your own boss or control your own destiny and love what you're doing. I think that that's success. And I think that's happiness too, because, they say, if you're doing what you love to do, you never really work a day in your life. And I think that's very true.
We got the trifecta. All right, there you go.
There
It's
you
the
go.
first time, the trifecta. So
Smart group.
let's get to networking, because I've met you all through networking, and networking is very important these days, And George, you have great events. George does always have awesome food. Faye is a great cook. She always gives me the queso to take home to Joanne. And your events are good. So, George, since you throw events also, what do you like about networking? And then after that, just give a quick snippet of what you don't like about networking.
What I like best is everyone's got a story, and we talk about that all the time here. Everyone's got something to say. Everyone has a story to tell, and musicians, artists, that's what we want to get to. We want to get into one's mind and what inspires them. So I like networking because I can talk to a number of people and find out what makes them tick literally in just a few minutes, and I can kind of get a good gauge of folks, whether they're likable or not, or whether they're someone that, I want to continue to have a relationship with. But I've been to I've gone to a ton of them, like the Jersey Man. Steve, you have a great networking event monthly over at Spitz. But even last night I went to a BNI thing just as a trial, and it all went very well. So I enjoy that. What I don't like, and it's really just because I'm spoiled here at the Soundplex because we're very acoustically perfected because of the recording studio aspect. I was in Tranos the other night, and the acoustics were absolutely horrible. I mean, you're literally yelling at people in order to communicate with them, and that shouldn't be the case. And it's difficult. It gets exhaustive, and it becomes kind of a thorn in my side when I have to work that hard just to communicate with someone. So I think if anyone has an event, and what's important is acoustics. You got to take the edge off the sound, the bouncing sounds, and that way people are going to communicate, and they can communicate at a level that's comfortable for them. So that's a kind of a pet peeve of mine, but I think it's kind of an important one because that's what it's all about, is communicating, and you want to be able to do it effectively.
How about you, Carmine? What do you like about networking? And just give a snippet of what you don't like about it.
George, you hit the nail on the head. I love going out and meeting people. There's lots of business out there to be had. And if you're not out there, you have no shot at getting it. So you go out, you meet people, and, the word gets back, to, like, for example, the guy that owns the company, he hears from other people that I see Carmine out there. I see him out there all the time, and that makes me look good, So I don't do it strictly for that, but I do it because I like going out and meeting people. But noisy rooms are, for me, unbearable. When it gets to that level of sound, I have to leave. I have to leave because it's just, you're screaming at people, and trying to hear each other, and and like it's funny, a lot of venues now, they have like concrete floors and high ceilings, and there's nothing to muffle the sound. It's just echo, like it being in a tin can, and that really, really gets on my last nerve. That's
Okay.
when I leave.
Okay.
When that happens.
How about you, Kevin?
I love the long game. Meeting somebody at an event, and then maybe you don't hear from them for a year or 2 years or 3 years or even more. And all of a sudden, you get a referral from somebody that they know that sends them your way. And it's like, man, I don't even remember meeting that guy, but you did, right? So sort of seeing the results of your networking prowess and your abilities to meet people come to fruition to an actual piece of business. That's the best for me. The worst are the people who waste not just my time, but their own time. It's annoying to me to see a group of people that they know each other so well, which is cool, right? But they only stay in that group. They only stick in a little corner talking to one or two people as opposed to getting out and working the room. And then they try to draw you in because instead of trying to grow as a networker or as a professional, they're more trying to get comfortable. So I want to know, Kevin. Let me talk to Kevin for the next 15 minutes about how I'm busy. I'm going to throw two in. People that say they're busy, annoys the shit out of me.
Yeah.
Busy is different than productive. You can be busy all day long, but are you growing your business? Are you making money? Are you putting food on your table? Totally different. So, that's where I am.
Yeah.
So I have a question coming up, and I want you guys to answer it short because I have two more questions for you. And I was going through LinkedIn, and I always bitch about LinkedIn, even though I get a lot of people. And I was going through LinkedIn, and someone was doing their typical AI bullshit. You can see the points, and they're saying, and here are the takeaways. Like we're supposed to listen to what their takeaways are. Like we're at this meeting and these are the takeaways and say, well, no, they're your takeaways, you narcissistic piece of shit. These are my takeaways are completely different. And that's one thing that bothers me about LinkedIn. The narcissism that leads to things like people saying, here's what you're going to do. I'm going to make your business better. Oh, how? You don't even know me. Kevin, we're going to go with you. Give me a quick snippet. What's something that bothers you about LinkedIn?
When people overstate their qualifications, they act like they're wizards and can do anything and everything, but really they've only maybe done it once and probably didn't do it so great. So that's a little annoying for me.
Okay. Carmine, a quick answer. What bothers you about LinkedIn?
Yeah, pretty much the same. People overstating themselves, because it's easy to put anything on LinkedIn. No one's really going to vet that until you actually apply for a job. Hopefully they will. But pretty much the same thing. You can build yourself up to be whoever you want to be on LinkedIn.
I was a tap dancing juggler and they hired me and I couldn't do either of them. So it really sucked. George, what's something you're newer on LinkedIn. So what's something you don't like about it?
Yeah, I was using it prior with my healthcare job, and I had a lot of connections. So now I had to transition to this, which is it's like almost like night and day. But I guess it's the messages where from people that are so obscure, they may even be bots. Why are you communicating with me? Don't you see what I'm doing? There's no interest in your business whatsoever. So I think because of that, I don't really spend much time there. I probably have to switch gears and go there. So I'll probably have some more to add to this. But right now, my LinkedIn work is limited. I'm more on social media, Facebook and Instagram. But I think that it's the bots and maybe these messages they seem fraudulent and canned and so on, and just form letters. So I'm not interested in dealing with those.
Well, here's the final question. You guys all have been doing a great job. Someone comes up to you, it could be a child, it could be someone you work with, or someone, someone starting a new career, and you're all successful, and they ask you, what do I do, man? Like you're playing the role as a mentor. What advice would you give them? Kevin, what advice would you give someone who they're looking to you as a mentor?
Say hello to everybody. You don't have to ask anybody about their business per se, but to get into a room, everybody knows the phrase hello, and you certainly know it, and that's how you can start a conversation. You can even let them lead if you just have the courage to say hello. So engaging with people through that is my first tip.
George.
Yeah, I would expand on that. Look people in the eye, even if you're just walking down the street, look them in the eye, give them a smile, be engaging, communicate like we used to communicate, and persevere. You're going to have down days. You got to persevere. Take them in stride. They're going to happen, but you're going to have great days too. So level out that roller coaster, and you become way more effective.
I try to look them in the eye, but I have a lazy eye, so they don't know if I'm like trying to rip them off or I'm just creepy. Carmine, what's some advice you'd give?
Be likable. Be likable to people. Be open to conversation. Don't be over opinionated. And just put yourself out there and make yourself someone that people want to be with.
Okay. Now, Kevin, how can people get in touch with you?
They can reach me on LinkedIn. They can reach me on social media or go to our website, kdlawgroupllc.com. And I'm available all the time. You can email me also, kd@kdlawgroupllc.com.
George, how can I get in touch with you?
George at thesoundplex.com. That's our website, thesoundplex.com. And on Instagram and Facebook, it's the same thing, the Soundplex. So
Carmine.
take a look at us, and hopefully I'll see you guys here at my place. Maybe even come to Steve's comedy show on the 26th.
Carmine.
My email is Carmine D, as in David, at Reliant Land Services. Or I can be reached by cell at 609-304-2705.
People, you can reach me at the Coop Tank at yahoo.com. Do me a favor, go to YouTube, look up the Coop Tank. A bunch of past episodes, great episodes on there. Look it up, check it out, comment on it, subscribe, follow us. Also, you can go into YouTube under Comedy Trainwreck, look up Coop's Comedy Corner. It's my new show with Comedy Trainwreck out of Philadelphia. Each week I have some amazing stand-up comedians come on the show, or TV writers, or two of my friends who run a TV show, Homicide. It's just a great lighthearted conversation. Also, coopertalk.net. You can find 1,026 episodes up there. I recently had comedy legend Alan Zweibel on. Also, don't forget the Soundplex. November 26th, Tuesday. You can reach me for ticket information, or just go to the Soundplex. Go into the Facebook page. They have all the info there. It's a great show. Jay Black is one of the funniest people around. There's great food. There's great wine. It's just a great night, and there's networking. And yeah. And also, don't forget about SuiteRecording. Joe Gangemi does a great job. So you want to reach out to them at hello@suiterecording.com. And Cocktails with Cooper is on Wednesday, December 4th. Come on down to Splits, who's actually going to be a sponsor of the show coming in December. And check it out. It's a great time. Starts at 4:30. Pay your own tab. Great professionals. And that's all I can say. So remember, I'm Steve Cooper. I want to thank you for listening and watching. Have a great Thanksgiving, and I will talk to you soon.
Yep.
All right. Great job, guys. Joe's going to take a picture. Joe, tell him, give him your insight, Joe.
Hey, Coop. Yeah, guys, that was great. Let's just smile for the camera. Let me just take a picture.